It doesn't grow back after that.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce all of these wonderful people. Welcome to today's episode of I Got Next, Games Radar's weekly talk show, wherein we speak with lovely people outside of the world of games. Today, however, we have a cornucopia of people from outside and within the world of games. We have Ronnie Hobbs of Gun Media, who is bringing Friday the 13th back to video games. They have a very active Kickstarter right now that is just a little over 10 grand away from hitting its goal and ending in a few days. We also have Adam Sessler, whose consultancy company is helping bring this game to life. And finally, we have none other than Kane freaking Hodder, which I don't think is his legal middle name. I don't think.
No, it is. It is.
I knew it. I knew it.
That's the tame version of my middle name.
The tame version. That's
what it is.
It's the PG-13 version. The PG-13
That's correct.
version.
The KFH.
That's it.
That's the easy way to say it.
Put it on a shirt.
I'm going to make that my production company now. KFH Productions.
Pretty good.
Okay. All right, everybody. While we are talking to these wonderful human beings, we are also playing the last Friday the 13th game to actually get released, which is Friday the 13th for the NES. Kane, you actually appear on the cover of this game. Your mug is sitting there, but it's a very different vibe than what I think of your performances as Jason Voorhees, because it looks like a Dayglow neon trapper keeper threw up on your costume.
Don't you love Jason's hair?
Yeah!
The mask. The natural or the orange afro or whatever color it was, yeah.
the flowing locks. So, at this era, Kane, and this game came out right...
There it is.
Right.
There's Kane's face.
Magic.
Give or take a couple masks and cows, but that is Kane on the front of the NES version.
Oh, it's awesome.
And did I make any money off that game? Oh, no, I did not.
I don't think anyone made any money off this game, Kane. I'll be perfectly honest. I think maybe $5 total were grossed on this game.
I bought it. It was like $60 back in the day, too, you know.
Oh my god, wait, did you actually go to the store and get it full price?
Oh, yeah. That's the only way I ever bought games. Like, there was no discount store, right?
I had to buy it, too. I didn't even get a free copy.
Oh, that is a bummer. This came out right around the exact same time as Friday the 13th Part 8, too, right?
It was right after 7, they thought about making it, they started creating it. When 8 came out, I think it was about that time, right, Kane?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah.
So Kane, maybe I don't know if you would have pushed for this, but why don't I get to kick over a group of teenagers boombox in this game?
Well, who said you don't?
Damn it! I knew it!
Undiscovered.
You never know. You never know what you're going to find. And that's what I love so much about this game, is you have no idea what surprises lie ahead.
So, yeah.
And I'd like to tell you, but then I'll have to kill you. So let me tell you.
Positive spin on the randomness of this game I have ever heard.
Yeah, just for reference, Kane is referring to the new game.
Yes.
Not the old one.
Oh, okay.
The old one, there was nothing random about that.
Okay.
No.
I don't even want to talk about the old
game.
So actually, Ronnie, you bring up something that I want to talk about. So this has only been a Friday the 13th game for a little while. When you launched the Kickstarter to help fund this was a game that was still called Summer Camp Volume 1, and that was that. How did you guys end up getting into the Friday the 13th license? How did Kane get involved? And I know that the creator of the series sort of brought this to the table with you, but how did that happen?
Well, as you can imagine, it was the craziest experience that you could ever dream about as a small company like us. So all we really wanted to do was create an homage to 80s slashers and Friday the 13th in general. And that's why we reached out to Kane, and that's why we reached out to Tom Savini, and Harry, and we had this dream team together. We just didn't have the license, and we didn't have Sean Cunningham. So we announced last October, and we had our head down just building the game, going on its plan, and then one day we get a call from Sean S. Cunningham, who's the director of the original film and the holder of the video game license. And at first you're kind of like, whoa, what do we do? Are we in trouble, right? You think you may have gotten a little too close to your homage. So, but luckily, Sean, after many, many conversations, he respected what we were doing. And I think his exact words were, you have all my guys, you're just missing me and the license. And Wes Keltner, the other co-creator, we were like, hey, we don't really have the money, Sean. We love it. We're a small company. He's like, no, you can have it for free if it'll make your game better.
Wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're staring at each other in disbelief. And it's like, this can't really be happening. I
Wow.
mean, so that's how it started. And then, of course, transitioning from Summer Camp, because it was a smaller title, transitioning from that to putting in all the assets that are needed. That includes multiple versions of Jason. That includes Crystal Lake. It has to be believable. It has to feel real. And all the enormous kills. The reason we hired Tom Savini, like we have to put all that in the game now. So why not go straight to the fans? One of the most hardcore fan base, Kane can attest to this. One of the most hardcore fan bases that I've ever seen. Go right to them instead of using a publisher for money. So.
And Kane, how did you get involved in this? Like, you know, I would imagine there comes a point in your life where you say, do I really need to keep putting on a jumpsuit and murdering teenagers? Like, is that a thing? Like, have I quenched that thirst at this point? But clearly not. Clearly that's an unquenchable thirst.
Not even close to quenching it, because as the fans know, I was replaced before I was ready to be replaced.
Right.
I didn't want to be replaced. They replaced me and never gave me a reason. So I was not ready to hang up the hockey mask in any way. So when Wes and Ronnie approached me with a game called Summer Camp, I thought, hey, that sounds familiar. I'd love to get involved with something like that. I think, in the back of my mind, I was always hoping maybe it would become what it has. And I had that hope in mind, but I thought, you know what, even if it doesn't, it sounds like these guys know what they're doing, and they're a very talented group, so I'm involved. And, I just welcomed the opportunity to be technically Jason again, because I really, really never wanted to give it up.
Well, for you, I would imagine this is a very different version of being Jason. What have you had to do so far in the game? Like, do you have to do motion capture? Are you ever actually wearing the costume? Like, have you had to do that? Like, what does playing Jason entail in the new game?
I'll help Kane out on this one. So, Kane's official title is, of course, he's playing the killer in our game. But what that really means underneath everything is he's the stunt coordinator on this title. He's doing all the mocap. He and his group of incredibly talented stuntmen are going to be the ones replicating these kills in a mocap environment. And that is part of the reason, not the only reason we chose Kane. He's a well-respected stuntman. Everyone knows that. We also wanted him to play Jason again. So it was the perfect fit. So Kane's helming that entire department. So, we're still in the process of even starting mocap. So,
right, and it may be a little method, but I prefer to kind of wear a version of the hockey mask even during the mocap.
Cool.
And it just makes me feel like I'm more in character. And I'll probably, this is one of the secrets that I hate to really reveal here, but I'll probably actually kill somebody during the mocap.
It's possible.
That's just for me.
Test that there is a possibility of this.
And I'm hoping it'll be Sessler. Please,
Oh.
please let it be Sessler.
Yeah, I don't think we can spare Adam, though. We might need him.
Sneaks up behind me and gets me into a chokehold. That is a look of complete surprise that's on my face, trying to figure out, what is that horrible pain that's digging into my neck? And I think that's also part of his larger method approach to playing Jason, both mask and
I think Randy Greenback has a little story as well.
Yeah.
During the interview session with us, but I do enjoy playing that kind of thing. So I'm I'm so excited about this. I can't even tell you.
Sessler, what is your role in all this, man? Are you a professional victim? Is that?
I've been pulling that job since I was 5 years old.
Oh.
Perfect for it.
So, I mean, the way I got involved, it was at E3, and here's something I've learned since leaving the press, is when you're press, you want to be on the floor of E3 all the time. I found that actually I accomplished more in the lobby of the JW Marriott during E3 than I ever accomplished before. Yeah. So it was the final day, so it was Thursday. I was going to head over to the Figueroa.
Yeah, that's where it was at, right? The Figueroa.
No. It was you approached me. I heard someone calling my name in the lobby of the Marriott.
Yeah.
Ronnie got me just as I was heading out, and he just told me just enough that it was Friday the 13th. It was 1v7, and my mind just started exploding. And I was like, I want to be involved with this. And they knew about my love for horror movies, and it just seemed like the right fit. So since I've come on, a lot of the focus has been on the Kickstarter. That's where a lot of my efforts have been. But Ronnie can also attest that when he and I have run into each other, there's many an idea and a problem to solve in terms of designing this game that we're also approaching as well.
Yeah, we're definitely going to use Adam for more than just PR. We value his opinion as a horror fanatic, and he's also our age, so he grew up during that time. And so, he's going to be providing some gameplay feedback too, and the whole package. So,
both of us got some obscure slasher movies, and I felt that this game was in about as right the hands as there could ever be.
Yeah.
Purple Cane.
If we're going to start going down the obscure slasher movie route, I would like to hear your favorites.
Favorites. Let's take Friday the 13th out because that's
obviously, yeah.
Can't talk about that, obviously.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
We can't say Hatchet either. You can't say Hatchet because Kane's here.
Right, because Kane's in it.
So just know that, Kane.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
You kill us for not saying Hatchet, okay?
No promises, but anyway.
Susan, do you like the early European slashers?
I do.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I grew up on.
Okay.
Like Cannibal Holocaust, that sort of thing?
Well, more Twitch of the Death Nerve, Opera, things like that. But yeah, Cannibal Holocaust, I'm familiar with it. But no, it's not one of my favorites.
No.
At all.
Is there someone who says that's their favorite? Because I want to meet that guy.
I don't ever want to meet that guy.
Nope.
You don't.
Yeah, not a person you want to hang out with. They're always sitting in the back of the room, breathing heavily, and it's like, dude, no.
Not a good thing. So yeah, I grew up on those. I used to go rent. This guy that owned the movie store would hand these to me. I was like an 8-year-old. He'd be like, "Hey, do you like horror movies?" And he would hand me these Giallo films, right? And I'm like, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And then after that, I started watching American slashers because I didn't have access to those because we didn't have HBO at that time. So I had to go get all my stuff from the movie store. So, yeah.
No, I did the same. I think the two that really stand out that I saw early on was The Burning, which is just so good.
Yeah.
Good one.
That really, kind of sets that bar. And then also Black Christmas.
Yeah.
Which
Nice.
now realize, I didn't realize at the time there was no term for the slasher movie. That really is the first American. Well, it's Canadian, so North American slasher.
North American, right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Bob Clark gets a lot of credit for that, but yeah, it goes way back. But yeah, at that point there was no term slasher, So it's easy to look back in time, but at that point there was no term,
Think about that. Bob Clark. This is the director of Black Christmas, Porky's, and A Christmas. This man is responsible for 3 significant genres. I don't think he's ever gotten. Obviously, he passed away, I think, in the past year. But you really never got the praise for what he started culturally.
Yeah,
That would be an amazing Oscar montage.
Yeah.
Right? I know, right? He's on the screen.
That would be
Like a Lifetime Achievement Award.
just
There's the
blurred
glass
out.
animal kill from Black Christmas, and then there's the whole scene in Porky's, and then
Everybody knows it. It's a classic moment.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
Kane, what's your favorite?
Well, I mean, if we're talking slashers in particular, first of all, I loved Black Christmas also.
Yeah.
One of my first favorites. But my all-time favorite horror film, if you want to call it that, is The Exorcist, because of the subject matter was untouched at that time.
That's true.
But as far as slashers, I loved the first Halloween movie. I know it's kind of like in the same thing that I do, but maybe it was an inspiration. I don't know. Even the second one I enjoyed.
It's
And
just
there
so
was
simple.
And there was, since I was interested in getting into stunts, I think it was Dick Warlock, maybe in the second one or something, where Michael Myers walked through a wall of fire in the hospital.
Yep.
And I loved that shot because, as you know, I love doing fire stunts myself. And that was such a cool, unexpected thing. You see a wall of fire and you see Michael just walk through it. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that set the tone for Michael.
Yeah.
Can we go off that? How does a person, you're sitting there, you're watching a movie, you see something like that, then how do you go from I want to be a stuntman to I am a stuntman? How does that work?
If you don't have a family member in the business, it is virtually impossible.
Really?
Yeah, because it is such an incredibly hard business to break into because it's very nepotistic, but basically because of the safety factor. People aren't going to hire you to do something dangerous if they have no idea what your background is, if you're qualified. Right. It's not like you can audition for an acting part and do a good job and get hired. You don't audition for stunts. Someone who trusts you, a stunt coordinator, says, I know this person can do this stunt, they hire you. And that's a stunt coordinator's job, one of the many things. And so it is so hard to get known in the stunt business if you can't get anyone to hire you. So if you don't have a family member that has previously blazed the trail, then it's a very difficult business. And, I didn't know anybody. So it took me 8 years of living on unemployment and trying to be a stuntman, working here and there, to build up enough contacts and enough people to say, yeah, I saw him do something pretty good. And then eventually it builds, but it's very difficult business.
But then how did you get practice? I mean, I don't imagine this is the stuff like you're just instantly good at it. So how do you get the opportunity to learn how to do all these things and do them safely and do them well enough to get in one or two takes?
Right. Well, the point is that back when I started, there was a stunt school in Santa Monica that several people I met were attending and learning how to do basic stunts, high falls, fight scenes, footfalls, basic knowledge that you need to do stunts. And they were in the stunt school. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to go to the stunt school, but I found out that it was in a gym in Santa Monica, and the school was there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Mm-hmm. But the students who were in the class were also there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday every week practicing, so that the next day they could impress the person that was teaching them. So all the students were there practicing on the off days. I was able to get a membership just to the gym. And then I went there every day that the stunt people were there. I started learning, making friends with them, learning stuff from them, and indirectly was a student of the school without having to pay for it, because I couldn't afford it. And it's ironic because one of the guys that was one of the students that would help me get trained also ended up playing Jason in Friday the 13th Part 5. His name is Tom Morga. And I know we know that wasn't really Jason or whatever, but he was the image of Jason in that movie. And it's just kind of funny that he and I met in 1975 at that stunt school. I wasn't even in the Screen Actors Guild yet. And he was working a little bit, and then we both went on to portray the same character in a franchise of films. I think it's pretty cool.
Do you think that demonstrates...
Velo 2K5 has a question specifically about Friday the 13th Part 7.
Okay.
Jason had a strong nemesis in Tina. What do you think he could have done differently to combat her abilities?
Wow. Well, I don't know if Jason intelligent. What did you say?
Kill her?
Yeah, well, yeah. That might have been a start. I think he tried, but it's interesting because that seemed to be the only nemesis that Jason ever had that was effective against him.
Right.
And that's why I liked the movie, because, from a stunt person's point of view, there was all kinds of stunts for me to do as the character. And, just the storyline was different. So I thought it was cool, but I think he, I don't know how you can battle someone that's doing stuff with their mind. So he was screwed.
Can we be clear that Corey Feldman is Jason's true nemesis when he's just whining all the time? I'm surprised that there isn't a director's cut where eventually Jason's head just explodes from being near early Corey Feldman.
Well, I've always thought that they should do one more film. It'll be the 13th in the series.
Oh, wow.
Bring me back as Jason and bring back Corey also.
Yes.
And let me finally rip his head off.
I am okay with this. If we kickstart that, I will back it.
Yep. Immediately.
Dr. back for us, will you?
Or, Ronnie, Corey Feldman DLC, man. So if it's Seven versus Jason versus Corey Feldman, that's...
We have Tommy Jarvis as a stretch goal. Now, we haven't said which Tommy Jarvis. As you know, there were 3 actors that played him.
Oh.
But
oh, snap!
we do have him as a stretch goal, so if everyone can go donate, we might actually hit that.
Oh,
so
somebody in the chat was saying that if everybody who donated an extra $1.75.
yeah, they did the math.
Yeah,
Yes.
they are intense about this. They want this to happen very,
Like
very
I said,
badly.
the most hardcore fan base that we've been around. It's crazy.
And the most loyal, by the way.
That's a good point.
This horror fans are the most loyal that I've ever seen, because no matter what kind of film I'll be involved in, whether it be horror or not, the horror fans will go see it. They may not like it, but they give me the respect to go see something, and that's why I love the horror fans. I know it sounds like I'm just kissing ass right now, but the horror fans are the best, and that's why I'm in this position.
Man,
so
Kane, I gotta tell you, I am a big heavy metal fan in addition to being a big horror fan, and there's a huge crossover in those communities. And I always have my wife laughing, because I'll talk about what it's like if you go to a midnight horror show or you go to a metal concert, and it's all of it's gore, it's blood, and it's guts, and people. You're never gonna meet a group of strangers who are more excited to be around each other, and
There's
just
so much love, man.
so much love.
So much love.
And what is that? Kane, you've been around it for so long. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I don't really care. I just love the fact that people I've met Kirk Hammett and I've become friends with him, guitarist for Metallica, because he's a horror fan.
Yeah,
That's true. He had at an airport I was in recently, some of his horror memorabilia was on display.
Oh yeah,
dude is hardcore. It's awesome.
Yeah, and then I'm good friends with a group of rappers called Twisted and Blaze and all these guys that are good friends of mine. I love their music also, but they're huge horror fans, especially Madrox. He's a guy that loves to watch the films that we do, and I love to listen to his music, so it's a good trade-off.
You've been in horror movies. You've done some very scary stunts. You've on camera killed people in a variety of really, really gruesome ways.
Mm-hmm.
What are you afraid of?
Oh well, I've been asked that question over the years, and I know it probably sounds like I'm trying to be Mr. Tough Guy, but I've never been able to come up with anything that scares me. None of the typical stuff, not even fire. I almost got burned to death, and even fire doesn't scare me. I still do fire stunts. I've never been able to come up with something until recently.
Oh.
And unfortunately, it's not a fun, happy answer, but if you want a truthful answer, the one thing that scares me is dementia.
Fair answer.
That's deep.
Very, very fair answer.
I don't mean to bring the mood down, or anything, but that's truthfully the only thing that I find scary is that.
See, does that fuel any of your performances though? Like, I can imagine that once you're staring down, something like, yes, you've been exposed to stunts that can cause your death. You've been set on fire. You've almost burned to death. But you sit there and you think to yourself, there's something to be afraid of that's literally going to change who you are as, a person. Has that changed the way that you approach your job? Does that change the way that you, look at stunts?
Not my job, but it has maybe changed the way I approach my life, possibly. But with the job, the things that I've drawn on over the years were the terrible things that were done to me when I was a kid by bullies when I was 10 and 11 years old. Some of that stuff I'm able to draw on and evoke considerable rage, and just other things in the past that make me easily to the violent stage, and I've always said that I feel like a normal person's personality is here, a psychotic murderer is here. I'm somewhere in the middle, so it's an easy trip for me to get there. Just my normal personality. So, I seem to get enraged pretty easily on camera.
Can you imagine being the kid who bullied Jason Voorhees?
No.
Right? Like, I'm not going to that high school reunion.
Every single time, I would immediately move. I would move to like Beijing or Mexico City, one of the most populous places on the planet where it is never dark outside.
Jason takes Mexico. That'd be.
I would love
be a
to
tough
move
movie.
into that guy again now. I really would. I think I would. I don't know. I may do something that I regret, but it would be nice to do a payback.
Dude who bullied Kane, you're so screwed, man.
Yeah.
You're just... That's the carbon train is coming for you.
Yeah, he may need the Kickstarter next.
Yeah.
Get me out.
So for Adam and Ronnie, okay, I don't know about you guys when you watch a Friday the 13th movie, or your basic people go to remote location, someone starts picking them off. I always feel like I would know how to get out of it. And
Okay.
this game gives us all the opportunity to test that.
Exactly.
Susan, I found Jason's mom. I got there.
Ah!
I got there. God,
Yeah.
finding anything in this game is impossible. Sorry to interrupt. Please go on, Ronnie.
We've been looking for Jason's mom's head the entire time.
Go ahead, Adam. Yeah.
Like,
I was going to say, that's the part that I find so fascinating, is that so much of this game is sort of subverting, not the convention, but the expectation of the horror movie, where, if you really think about it, all those poor counselors and all the other victims in those movies, they never had any individual agency. They were trapped by the screenplay. They were there for the sole purpose of dying.
Right.
Here, if you're playing them, you're trying to undo it. I think what's also cool, since we're using all of those archetypes from the movies, is that you're really also trying to subvert the expectation of what happens to those, to the nerdy person, to the bad boy. There's always sort of an expectation of how and when their demise is going to come, and you're trying to undermine that. Having said that, I am playing around with matches in my head and talking with Ronnie. There will be reason, if you want to efficiently try to get out, where you may be with someone and you're going to say, let's split up, which is usually like the classic no-no.
Right.
But if you want to get the parts to fix the truck or fix the boat, well, if you do it all together, it's going to take longer. So you might want to split up and try to regroup. But then again, what if you don't regroup? Are you going to know what happened to the other guy that didn't make it back? I think that in many ways you can somehow undo all the mistakes of the counselors in the movies, but you will surprisingly replicate more of them than you realize, and you may actually have some sort of new sympathy for the decision-making of all those camp counselors.
What's cool about that is Friday the 13th, and even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in particular, a key to slasher is putting people in a position where they can't escape.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's what made Friday the 13th work, because these were kids away from adults. They were trapped out in the middle of nowhere, and your only option is either to drive out of there or run through the woods. right? And in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they perceivably make you think you're in the middle of nowhere. So even if you take off running down the street, you're going to die anyway. So that's why our game kind of works in that similar fashion. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're at Camp Crystal Lake. And there's not a whole lot you can do to escape unless you go through certain actions. So,
Ronnie, is it a period piece? Is Friday the 13th the game taking place in the 80s? Or do people have phones?
There will be no cell phones.
No cell
it's
phones.
definitely an 80s period piece.
All right.
We have the fortunate pleasure of pulling things from the entire franchise. So that means multiple versions of Jason. That means multiple maps if we hit our stretch goals. So we could possibly use multiple locations within Camp Crystal Lake. Because as you know, they all don't take place at one campground. There's the Higgins Haven and then Jarvis House and the Packanack Lodge. Those are all different areas of Crystal Lake.
And space.
So-
Don't forget space.
Space is that's actually a stretch goal.
Oh,
It's,
really?
Oh God,
$40
please.
billion, I think.
Oh,
No, because we're
I
gonna-
love Jason X so much.
Yeah, but the Grendel, the spacecraft there, it could certainly be a playable map. But yeah, we're definitely concentrating on Crystal Lake itself first, perfecting those. So
Yeah, but also in terms of the 80s, as Ronnie was saying, that what one of the other goals for the game, and Ronnie, I can't remember off the top of my head how much of it is the stretches or not, is if you watch, and I just watched all the Friday the 13th movies back to back, it's an amazing tour of the 80s mores and fashion. Because, what's kind of like what people are wearing in Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 changes dramatically once you get to like 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Like especially bad kids who seem to be the most docile gang members you've ever seen, but they have enough,
from Part 3.
they have enough fringe on the leather jacket,
Yeah.
but they seem to be so pleasant. You get the idea that they were kind of kicked out of the Warriors and they've been just wandering around America looking for
They remind me of the Warriors.
someone to accept them.
But yeah. So it is a period piece, but we do have a long period to choose from. So
Kayan, this is something I wanted to ask you earlier when we were talking about sort of the vagaries of being a stuntman and how you really, at the time, needed to know somebody to sort of bring you into that world. I'm curious how being a stuntman has changed most significantly. Is there a lot of technology that makes you safer? And how do you feel about computer animation? Like, are you okay with CG replacing something that somebody in a suit should be doing?
I don't think I really care for CG replacing, but I'm okay with it enhancing. Whether it be makeup effects or stunts or something. I'm still a fan of practical effects and practical stunts, but there have been moments where CG has enhanced one of those two things and just been something to add to what was already done, and that's okay with me. And as far as the stunt business, it's changed a little bit over the years, just become a little technologically safer with the equipment we use and stuff, but it'll never be a real safe business. And it's something that will continue to change, but from the time that I started till now, not a huge difference in how things are done. The people are still hitting the ground hard, and there's always the same kind of fight scenes, and sometimes cameras can make something look a little better than it was, and I've had stunts in the past where I've done something and then seen it on film and thought, wow, it wasn't captured in a way that showed how dangerous it actually was. And then I've had the opposite of that, where I've done something and I look at it on screen and think, wow, that looked incredible, and it actually wasn't very difficult. So, it can work both ways, but I'll always like the practical stuff.
I'm curious how you guys are making Friday the 13th the game to sort of have that impact. To you're talking about making a stunt so that you really, really feel it, so that the audience gets that visceral feel. And the funny thing is I think a lot of games show too much. You'll play a game and you'll see some kind of spectacular feat of violence, and because it shows you every last detail, it's not like it's not even funny. Like you're not even getting sort of like the ridiculousness that you get out of, say, Jason repeatedly hitting a sleeping bag with a person inside into a tree. So like what's the secret? Like how are you guys making sure that the kills in Friday the 13th feel like they're you know, I know it sounds macabre
realistic?
to say, yeah. Well, not realistic, but special.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
In horror, there's a fine line that you can go over in an instant, especially in video games, where it becomes too much.
Yeah.
It goes from being scary or creepy to just stupid.
Right.
Yep.
You know, and that is something we don't want to happen. But also, that's kind of why we hired Tom and Kane. So we want these awesome, brutal kills from Kane, but we want the blood flow and the way that someone may get their arm chopped off or get their throat slashed or a weapon in their head. We want that to look realistic and not just go through the body Mortal Kombat style, if you will, and split a body in half. So it's about keeping the kills realistic and practical. Because the moment you start going all out on the gore and all the blood and bodies are disintegrating, or, you know, to use Mortal Kombat, like if Kane was to smash his hands together and a head exploded, that's not on brand. In the movies, we know what happens when Jason does this to someone's head. There's a slow bleed and the eyeball kind of comes out, but it's not overdone, right? That's the key for us.
And that's why that Wes and Ronnie agreed that it would be a good idea for me to bring stunt people in to recreate these kills, because anyone that's ever done a movie with me and died at my hand, whether it be Friday movie or Hatchet or anything, will tell you that I'm a little bit rough with the actors in their death scenes. I never hurt anyone, but it's not comfortable, and it always looks better if I can be somewhat, I guess for lack of a better term, rough with them. It'll always translate better on film.
Physical. I mean, you are portraying an attack, so you can't be gentle about it.
Right,
You have to
and
be
there's
safe.
actors that have said that to me at the time, say, "Hey, man, can you do that a little easier?" And I'm like, "No, actually, I can't, because I won't be happy with it." And I say no, and I do it the way I want to do it. They bitch about it, then they see it on film and say, "Oh yeah, I see why you did that. It looks great." So, you know, and we have come to the conclusion that I have murdered more people on film than any actor in history.
Whoa.
Really?
Because of all the different movies I've had multiple murders in. And I use the word murder because I don't want it to be construed as, you know, the good guy gunning down 50 bad guys.
Right.
That's different. But one at a time murders, and I think I've murdered 125 people on film or something. So that's something.
And what's
to
cool,
Need a
at least
plaque.
for me, Jason never uses a gun.
Never.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always
No.
very personal.
Never will if I have something
Wait.
to say about it.
What about the harpoon gun? Does that count?
Gun count?
The
Doesn't
harpoon
count.
gun's out? All right.
That wasn't Kane.
First of all, that
But-
wasn't Kane. Secondly,
done
it doesn't count.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it. I would have said, that's not in character. I wouldn't have
Really?
said,
You
Yeah.
don't think the harpoon's in character?
no.
Not for Kane.
Wait. The
You
harpoon
have to remember.
gun? Oh, you mean the harpoon gun from Park?
The late Richard Brooker, of course.
No. Yes.
There are two Jasons. You know, the
Yeah.
dead Jason, which is what Kane portrayed. But then there's the living, stumbling, bumbling Jason from the earlier films before he actually died. So that's why you see those very, very different takes on the character. Kane is this undead killing force that can morph anywhere, and he doesn't have to run at you. But the earlier Jason, he was alive, so he did have to act.
Right.
Yeah.
But I see the point about the weapon. Firing a harpoon gun is not that much different than firing a gun. But
it's
somehow the way we did it in Part 8, I happened upon it.
Yeah.
And to me, it didn't seem so premeditated, like I brought a gun with me and shot.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess that's the way I approached that single harpoon.
I should go back to one thing about that harpoon gun that has plagued me ever since I first saw Friday the 13th Part 3. what the hell were they fishing in Crystal Lake?
Like, why is it near a lake?
Really, it's like if they were down by the ocean, it's like, okay, maybe they're going after swordfish.
Right.
But what's in the
this is
lake
hanging
that they
out.
have
Yeah.
a harpoon? I've never heard of that.
And even more,
Children.
even more than that, if you recall, I missed with the firing the harpoon. It went in the wall, and then I killed the person with the gun itself by putting it through their
but
guts.
in part 3, though, you're like, why is there a harpoon near this lake? Right? You're like, what are they hunting?
It's those
Yeah.
it's those vicious Crystal Lake pike, man. You gotta take those suckers out with
Maybe
the
they
heavy
knew.
material.
Maybe that was there to kill Jason.
Derek Metaltron has a wonderful question here in the chat, which is what sort of counselor types are there? I'm assuming nerd, hot girl, girl next door, jock, and edgy guy.
Hey, those are all on the table for sure. He's exactly right. Give or take, there might be another one or two there where we're still working on exact character tropes and how to implement them correctly. Because it's easy just to say, hey, get the class clown, but what could he possibly do?
Right.
Right. So they have to have a skill set that allows them to provide some cool stuff.
Distract Jason with wacky hijinks, as everyone else does.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
And pop culture references. Like he's gonna sit there and lay out the other. Well, maybe he could be a healer class, like making everybody laugh by saying like, "Oh no, somebody get me a
Laughter's the best
Scooby
medicine.
snack."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work against Kane, but
I like the idea that a bunch of kids start laughing and Jason's like, oh, there they are.
it's the reverse effect.
Oh,
Have any of you? I believe Adam has seen the movie The Final Girls.
Oh yeah, we've
Yeah.
Okay. Which is it's great because it kind of digs into those 80s slasher tropes
Yep.
in a very smart way that I feel like the creators of this game would appreciate greatly.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, we've seen it. I like the movie, and I know a lot of people here have seen it too.
Although the one thing is, and this isn't a diss towards Final Girls, but it plays on something that once again became really highlighted while I watched all the Friday the 13th movies back to back, that we tend to have memories of things in those movies that may not be there. That with the
What?
exception of 5, the movie, like the first 4 are not that sexualized.
yeah.
There is some sex, but it's relatively juvenile and not in the period way.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
they don't have sex, and most of the nudity comes from skinny dipping. Whereas I think that all of us kind of had a memory that everybody was kind of going off into the woods, getting busy, and then dying. And it actually there's almost something more innocent about those movies than I had ever really realized. I think it's been about 10 years since I had gone back and watched them.
Yep.
It's really interesting, Adam, because I found, like, even at the time that these movies were still coming out, that the sort of habit of mythologizing what's actually in them is like part of the experience. That you go in and you're like, oh man, like there's something about the suggestiveness of what you see in Friday the 13th movies that makes them seem way more extreme than they actually are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
my memory of that, that harpoon scene, like, Kane, you're right. Like, you're talking about, like, you miss and then go in and kill with the actual harpoon gun. But in my head, like, I remember that scene being, like, horrifically gory, and, like, 4 people died rather than 1. And it's amazing to see that power still carries over.
And it's a very interesting transition because I think we also sometimes ascribe stuff that's more associated with the 70s horror movies, which are a lot more gruesome. That's, the way that I think the popular imagination or the popular criticism of it is that a lot of those 70s movies were reactions to Vietnam. I think you really see Last House on the Left, Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there's something very guttural and very uncomfortable and unpleasant about the violence in those movies. And when it shifts over to the 80s, I think you can say it gets a little bit more kid-focused rather than straight-up grindhouse-focused.
Totally.
And and one of the things I've always felt is, while you had sort of a reaction to Vietnam in those 70s movies, in the 80s, it's almost like Jason and a lot of the other killers become this sort of embodiment of the Reagan era, that you're seeing this reaction to kind of the sexual and social politics that had happened in the previous 2 decades. I'm not saying that the movie itself supported that ideal, but it's just kind of this this kind of unstoppable force is coming and sort of righting wrongs among our misguided youth. And I think that's why we tend to look back on those movies with a lot of fun, whereas Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean, I adore that movie to death, but it's something that, like, I have to be in a lot more of a mood
Totally.
to sit down and watch, because it can be so deep, so dark and so unpleasant.
I mean, Kane mentioned the original Halloween, which I adore. And I actually, this is probably going to damage my horror movie credentials. I had never seen the original Halloween until just last year. And
wow.
And it's amazing how well it holds up. And it's just, like, so brutal. But that movie's 1979. And it's amazing because that distinction that you're describing is right there. Like, the original Halloween is, like...
Seeing that transition happen right there with Halloween.
Yeah. Like it's dark, it's spooky, it's nasty, and then you move on to Friday the 13th just a couple of years later, and it's so much more fun automatically.
Not the first one.
Not the first one, right.
The first one is dark.
And spare. But, like, I almost don't count the first one in my head, since it's not Jason. Spoiler,
That's
everybody. Fair. Spoiler. What is there?
Spoiler.
Do we need a spoiler warning on that? Is the statute of limitations up?
I think so.
I think 35 years gives you a pass.
Right. Yeah, probably.
And besides, Scream spoiled it already. So.
Also, kids, it's a sled. It's a sled, all right? I spoiled an older movie for you as well.
Surprise! Guess what, everybody? We were actually the beast all along, not the giant ape who falls off the Empire State Building. Spoiler warning. We have just...
I was going to tell you, that when you were talking about, like, you like the simplicity of Halloween, it was originally not going to be called Halloween. The original name for it was The Babysitter Killer.
Really?
Or The Babysitter Killings. It was something that kind of just...
Spare?
Like, here's a movie where you will see babysitters die. End of story, please enjoy.
Yeah.
Please,
a
go.
good choice to change the name on that one.
Yeah.
So before we go, we have just a few minutes left, and already I want to thank all three of you for joining us today, because Kane, I'm so happy that you were actually able to make it, man. Like, that is thrilling. So,
All right, it's been my pleasure.
One last question from Duberman here in the chat that he asked a little bit ago. What will happen if the Kickstarter is not
The old magical question: what'll happen? Well, here's the real answer, and we've actually said this multiple times. We were already previously funded for summer camp. Okay, so there will be a game that exists if for some reason we don't hit our 700,000, which is impossible.
Right.
But for some reason, if that doesn't happen, we'll just have to go back and we'll have to reevaluate features. So we're gonna go have a meeting and we're gonna look at everything on the board and we're gonna go, okay, what's the least coolest aspect, and then we have to cut it. That's how game development works, and that's the unfortunate part of the business is you have to know where to draw the line on features. So
We can't let that happen, though.
I know, right? Yeah.
We cannot, based on what I've heard that could be the possibilities, we can't let it happen. It's going to be such an amazing game, and just the animation itself, and such a group of, maybe it sounds ridiculous to use the term, but it's a group of geniuses that have gotten together to do this game, and I can't wait to be more involved in it, and I can't wait to play it. Because imagine me being able to see how it feels to be a counselor trying to escape me.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
The same thing as
Also,
he's asked me, how's it feel to be Jason? Well, guess what? You're going to see a little bit how it feels.
I see a lot of comments too, and something that's really cool to think about is it's not necessarily 7v1 or 1v7. That evokes a sense of, oh, I've seen that before in other games. Ours is actually like 1v1v1v1v1v1v1, if I said 7 of those. So it is cooperative, but it can also be treacherous at the same time, and you don't always have to work together.
Wait a minute, can I take out another counselor to, like...
Yeah, we're still working on what happens when you hit a counselor. Because the moment you let people kill other counselors, the trolls come out of the woodwork.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out a way, but you can definitely work together, but sometimes it's not to your benefit.
Like, I don't have to be faster than Jason. I just have to be faster than you.
That's what separates this game from a lot of other multiplayer games. Go ahead, Adam.
When I was doing a lot of podcasts recently, this was kind of the aha moment that, unlike other asymmetrical games, the counselors as a team don't win. The individual counselor wins if they survive.
Right.
That's, and then that changes. And then one of the key things is, let's say that you're with 3 people and you're working on fixing that boat. Okay, you fix the boat, but the boat has 2 seats.
Oh,
Cool.
So yeah, that's the thing is, I don't think that even through the course of a match, you necessarily are going to assume that what alliance you have at the beginning is one that will be worth your while for the duration of the match. When and where you decide that you want to engage either in subterfuge or just turn tail on someone. I mean, and think about it. If you're with a slower counselor, that might be useful because law of the jungle. If Jason shows up, you can run faster.
Yep. Because
So-
everyone has a plan until that guy shows up.
Yeah.
There. Until Kane shows up. So, you'd be surprised who turns on you at the last minute when Jason shows up.
I will just let you know. I will turn on all of y'all.
Immediately.
Second he shows up, I'm like, peace. And
Susan,
I'm tripping you, and I'm running.
you're not gonna make it that far because I've stockpiled all the Palander's all fruit the entire time. Took all the jelly. Kane, I'm also curious, what camper do you want to play as the first time when you finally get to play this game and you can see it from the other side? Who do you want to be?
I'd love to be a nerd.
The total opposite of Kane, right?
the brain of the group, because I went into a business that you don't necessarily have to have much intelligence, and I pride myself on just that. So it might be fun to kind of be the brain and try and figure something out.
Oh God, Ronnie, please build a character model that just is Kane in real life, but with the classic Coke bottle frame glasses taped up in the middle,
We'll
like
put that on the board behind us.
1950s.
Socially awkward. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I love it. Everybody, if you want to back the game, you can find more information and everything on the game's Kickstarter page. Just go to Kickstarter.com, search for Friday the 13th, the game. Here is a link to it in the chat momentarily. If you have enjoyed this wonderful stream today, we encourage you to go and click that follow button at the bottom of the screen. Click the little heart at the bottom of everything so that you'll know when we go live. And we will be back later this week. We have another talk show for you on Thursday. We're going to be playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate and hanging out with the Grammy Award-winning composer Austin Wintory, who is
God, he's so good.
super good, right?
Journey blows my mind every time I play it. The music.
That guy is good at his
Good.
freaking job.
He's kind of talented.
Kind of
Just
talented.
a little.
Just ever so slightly.
Just a little.
Ever so slightly. As
And I
are
have-
you, gentlemen.
I have one final thought for everyone that joined us with this too, if I could.
Please.
Please.
Like we're saying, please go to the Kickstarter, help us get this thing done, because anyone that has been involved in this chat this evening or this afternoon, I can find out who you are and where you are. And if I will track to see which of you do donate and which of you don't. So those of you that don't donate, watch your backs.
Oh my god. Everybody.
Okay, but can we make it a stretch goal that if you donate a certain amount, you
I'll
will
kill
put
you.
them in a sleeping bag and smash them into a tree?
Hey,
Oh, sure.
we had 4 counselor spots for 10 grand, and those are already sold out. So
Yeah,
there
I
are
can't
4
say
lucky
surprised.
people who get to be counselors forever
That's-
in the Friday
that's pretty
13th
awesome.
canon. So
That
he will
is
definitely be bashing one of those 4 people against a tree.
Nice.
amazing. Everybody, yeah, if you've backed and all of a sudden you hear in your background of your house, well, that's now the man told you he's actually going to show up. That's
He
amazing.
warned you.
He warned you.
In all fairness, he warned you.
He did.
True.
All right, everybody, we'll be back
Not an
tomorrow.
unfair psycho killer.
No,
No.
not by any means.
Well, they're never unfair.
No. It's not about fairness.
Just
Wait,
don't-
are they fair? Is it equal opportunity?
Totally.
Like, yeah.
Totally.
Maybe.
It's a completely fair system.
Susan, right there. I think we need to have a debate the next time. The fairness of the slasher A symposium on Games
Yes.
Radar.
Oh my God, that'll be our next PAX panel.
There you go, everybody. The
sounds
fairness
like
of the slasher. Kane, Ronnie, Adam, thank you so much for being with us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you, guys.
Thanks for having us.